These three zodiac signs hold the power to break curses. Cayce. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the veil lifts, a moment when you realize that some people walk among us carrying ancient keys, keys forged in starlight and cosmic fire, keys that unlock the spiritual chains binding families for generations. You might know someone like this. Perhaps it's you. They move through the world differently. There's something in their eyes, a depth that suggests they've seen into the shadows most fear to acknowledge. When they enter a room, the energy shifts. Old patterns begin to crack. Ancestral wounds start to heal. These are the curse breakers, not the theatrical figures of movies and folklore, wielding dramatic rituals and mystical theatrics. No, these are ordinary people, carrying extraordinary gifts. Souls who incarnated with specific cosmic abilities that others simply do not possess. They are the ones who can shatter the invisible chains that bind entire family lines. The ones who can transmute generational trauma into wisdom. The ones who can dissolve patterns of suffering that have persisted for centuries. And according to Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet whose trance readings revealed the deepest mysteries of the soul, these cosmic liberators are not randomly scattered throughout humanity. They come through specific channels. Three zodiac signs that serve as cosmic doorways for souls carrying curse-breaking abilities. Three astrological configurations that the universe uses to place its most skilled spiritual surgeons exactly where they're needed most. For decades, Cayce's readings mapped the soul's journey through the cosmos. He revealed how celestial patterns at the moment of birth don't just influence personality, they determine the spiritual gifts, karmic responsibilities, and cosmic purposes each soul agrees to carry. And in his vast collection of readings, a pattern emerged, a pattern that revealed which souls incarnate, with the rare ability to break curses, dissolve negative patterns, and free entire bloodlines from cycles of suffering. The implications are staggering. If you understand these cosmic roles, you might discover why certain relationships in your life have been so transformative, why some people seem to absorb your pain and transmute it into healing, why others can look at your family's deepest wounds and somehow change everything. You might discover that you yourself carry one of these ancient gifts, that your struggles, your intensity, your uncanny ability to transform darkness into light, these aren't random quirks of personality, they're cosmic assignments. But what Cayce discovered about these three signs will reveal whether you're one of the chosen curse breakers. Edgar Cayce was not your typical astrologer. While others mapped personality traits and daily predictions, Cayce dove deeper, much deeper. In his legendary trance states, his conscious mind would step aside, allowing access to what he called the Akashic Records, the cosmic library containing every soul's complete spiritual history. From this profound state of consciousness, Cayce didn't just read natal charts. He read souls. He could see beyond the surface of astrological influences into their true spiritual purpose. Why certain planetary configurations attracted specific types of souls. How celestial patterns at birth determined not just character, but cosmic capability. His approach transformed astrology from personality psychology into soul archaeology. Each reading became a spiritual X-ray, revealing the deeper currents flowing beneath everyday life, the karmic contracts each soul had agreed to fulfill, the spiritual gifts they'd brought from previous lifetimes, the cosmic assignments they'd volunteered to complete. And through thousands of these profound readings, patterns began to emerge. Patterns that revealed how the universe strategically places certain souls with specialized metaphysical abilities, in specific astrological configurations. Cayce discovered that some zodiac signs serve as cosmic launching pads for souls carrying extraordinary spiritual gifts. not the surface-level gifts of intuition or empathy that many possess, but rare, specialized abilities that few souls are prepared to carry. The ability to transmute collective darkness, the ability to dissolve ancestral trauma, the ability to break curses. Through his deep trance work, Cayce could see how certain astrological patterns create the perfect energetic matrix for these powerful souls to incarnate, how specific planetary influences provide the spiritual armor necessary to take on humanity's deepest shadows, how certain zodiac configurations offer the cosmic tools needed to perform spiritual surgery on patterns that have bound families for generations. This wasn't theory or speculation. These were direct revelations from the soul level, insights gained through accessing the cosmic records themselves. And what he found about curse-breaking abilities will challenge everything you thought you knew about zodiac powers. Before we reveal which 3 signs carry these extraordinary gifts, we must understand what Cayce meant by curses. Forget Hollywood's dramatic depictions of hexes and supernatural spells. The curses Cayce described are far more subtle and far more devastating. These are the invisible patterns that trap consciousness in cycles of repeated suffering, the generational wounds that pass from parent to child, like spiritual DNA, the ancestral trauma that creates the same patterns of addiction, abuse, poverty, and heartbreak across multiple generations of the same family. These patterns aren't random misfortune. They're actual energetic structures built from accumulated negative thought patterns, sustained by unforgiven grievances and powered by the emotional charge of repeated trauma. Imagine negative energy as a kind of spiritual sediment. Over time, layer by layer, this sediment builds up around family systems. Each generation adds their own layer of pain, resentment, fear, and limitation. Eventually, these accumulated layers become so dense they create their own gravitational field, pulling family members into the same destructive patterns regardless of their conscious intentions to break free. A family might struggle with addiction for generations, with each member swearing they'll be different, yet somehow finding themselves caught in the same cycle. Another bloodline might experience repeated patterns of financial sabotage, always finding a way to destroy prosperity just as it begins to bloom. Still others might carry patterns of emotional abandonment, relationship betrayal, or health crises that seem to strike the same family system again and again. These aren't mere psychological tendencies, they're energetic prisons, karmic contracts that bind consciousness to repeating cycles of suffering until someone with the right cosmic keys can break them. Breaking these patterns requires more than positive thinking or therapeutic intervention. It requires spiritual surgery, the ability to enter these dense energetic structures and dissolve them at their source, the capacity to absorb toxic patterns, transmute them through one's own spiritual system, and release pure energy back into the collective field. This kind of work demands specific cosmic gifts that most souls simply don't possess. It requires the spiritual equivalent of radiation suits, astrological configurations that provide protection while working with the most toxic energetic materials. It requires cosmic tools that can cut through patterns that have accumulated power over generations. It requires souls brave enough to voluntarily enter the darkest spaces in human consciousness for the purpose of liberation. According to Cayce, the universe strategically places curse breakers in specific zodiac configurations, and the first sign might shock you. If you've ever wondered why Scorpios seem drawn to darkness, mystery, and the taboo subjects others avoid, now you understand. They didn't choose this attraction. They were cosmically designed for it. Scorpio souls incarnate with the rarest spiritual gift of all, the ability to transform poison into medicine through the sheer force of alchemical will. Where others see darkness and turn away, Scorpios see raw material for transformation. Where others feel overwhelmed by negative energy, Scorpios feel called to dive deeper. This isn't masochism or drama-seeking behavior. It's cosmic assignment. Scorpio curse breakers operate like spiritual radiologists. They can safely enter the most toxic energetic environments without being destroyed by what they encounter. Their gift lies in emotional fearlessness. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to feel terror and move forward anyway, to look directly at what others cannot bear to acknowledge, to absorb the accumulated darkness of entire family systems into their own being, process it through their spiritual liver, and release pure energy back into the collective field. Watch a Scorpio cursebreaker at work. They might enter your life during your darkest period, when addiction has its grip, when family trauma is exploding, when patterns of self-destruction feel overwhelming. While others offer sympathy from a safe distance, the Scorpio moves closer. They don't just listen to your pain, they feel it in their own body. They don't just understand your family's dysfunction, they absorb its energetic signature and begin working on it from within their own system. This is why relationships with Scorpios can feel so intense, so transformative, and sometimes so exhausting. They're not just relating to you personally, they're working on the deeper patterns that run through your entire lineage. Their process is profound alchemy. They take the raw, toxic material of generational trauma and run it through their own emotional furnace. The heat of their willpower, the fire of their spiritual commitment, the intensity of their capacity to feel everything without being destroyed. Through this internal process, they literally transmute negative energy into wisdom, poison into medicine, curses into blessings. But few understand the cost. Scorpio curse breakers carry the spiritual equivalent of radiation exposure. The toxic patterns they absorb for transformation don't simply disappear. They must be processed through their own emotional and energetic system. This creates periods of profound intensity, depression, and what might appear to be self-destructive behavior. But these aren't random psychological struggles. They're the necessary byproducts of performing spiritual surgery on humanity's deepest wounds. The Scorpio's own darkness often reflects the collective shadow they're working to transform. But Scorpio's gift comes with a profound cost that few understand, while the second curse-breaking sign operates through completely different cosmic mechanics. If Scorpio breaks curses through alchemical transformation, Pisces dissolves them through oceanic love. Where Scorpio uses intensity, Pisces uses infinity. Where Scorpio employs willpower, Pisces channels compassion. The Pisces approach to curse breaking might be the most misunderstood spiritual gift in the Zodiac. Because their process appears so gentle, so subtle, so seemingly passive, few recognize the profound power they wield. But make no mistake, Pisces curse breakers possess the ability to dissolve even the most vicious spiritual attacks through the sheer force of unconditional love. Their secret lies in emotional archaeology. While others see the surface symptoms of family curses, the addiction, the abuse, the repeated patterns of destruction, Pisces sees deeper. They can feel into the original wound that created the entire pattern, the moment of betrayal that generated the first charge of resentment, the instant of abandonment that began the cycle of emotional armor, the precise point where love turned to fear and fear crystallized into a curse. Once they locate this original wound, something extraordinary happens. The Pisces curse breaker generates such profound empathy for all parties involved that the emotional charge sustaining the pattern simply melts away. Imagine generational anger as ice. Most attempts to break family curses are like attacking ice with a hammer. creating fragments that scatter and refreeze elsewhere. But Pisces operates like warm water. They surround the frozen pattern with such complete understanding, such total compassion for everyone involved, that the ice dissolves back into its original liquid state. No violence, no force, no dramatic confrontation, just love applied with such consistency and depth that resistance becomes impossible. This is why Pisces often find themselves in the role of family peacemaker, even when they never consciously chose that position. They instinctively feel the pain beneath everyone's defensive behavior. They can sense the original innocence that existed before the wounds created the patterns. And through their natural empathy, they create a space where that original innocence can be recovered. But the Pisces approach requires extraordinary spiritual strength. To dissolve curses through compassion, they must maintain their heart connection to everyone involved, even those who caused the original trauma. They must feel the pain of the abuser and the abused simultaneously. They must hold space for the perpetrator's innocence while honoring the victim's wound. This creates a unique vulnerability. Because Pisces curse breakers feel everything, they can easily become overwhelmed by the sheer volume of pain they're processing. Their natural empathy can become a spiritual liability if they don't develop proper energetic boundaries. Without protection, they can lose themselves in other people's pain. They might become perpetual rescuers, sacrificing their own well-being to heal everyone around them. They might develop what appears to be codependent behavior, but is actually their cosmic gift expressing itself without proper spiritual support. The most dangerous temptation for Pisces curse breakers is believing they must suffer to serve, that their spiritual assignment requires them to become martyrs. But true compassion includes self-compassion. True healing includes their own healing. True curse-breaking requires them to remain spiritually sovereign while performing their oceanic dissolving work. When Pisces masters this balance, maintaining infinite compassion while preserving their own energetic integrity, they become unstoppable forces for collective healing. Yet Pisces curse-breakers face a dangerous temptation that can turn their gift into their greatest vulnerability. Unlike the third sign whose approach revolutionizes everything. Of all the curse-breaking signs, Capricorn might be the most surprising. Where's the mystical intensity? Where's the emotional drama? Where are the psychic abilities and spiritual theatrics we expect from cosmic healers? Nowhere to be found. And that's exactly what makes Capricorn curse breakers so devastatingly effective. While Scorpio transforms through alchemy and Pisces dissolves through compassion, Capricorn breaks curses through systematic spiritual architecture. They don't attack the curse directly. They dismantle the structures that support it. Think of family curses as buildings. Most people see the impressive facade, the dramatic symptoms, the repeated patterns, the obvious dysfunction. But Capricorn sees the foundation, the support beams, the structural elements that keep the entire edifice standing. And with the patience of a master demolition expert, they begin systematically removing these supports until the curse has nothing left to stand on. Their approach is methodical, practical, and profoundly effective. A Capricorn curse breaker might enter a family system struggling with generational poverty and begin making subtle changes. They don't perform dramatic rituals or emotional healings. Instead, they start building new structures, new financial habits, new educational priorities, new relationship patterns based on respect rather than manipulation, new communication styles that bypass the family's traditional emotional triggers. Slowly, persistently, with the dedication of someone laying a new foundation stone by stone, they construct alternative patterns for the family system to inhabit. Meanwhile, they're simultaneously deconstructing the old patterns, not through confrontation, but through consistent non-participation. They simply refuse to engage with the family drama that feeds the curse. They won't argue about money in the old way. They won't participate in the traditional blame games. They won't enable the addictive behaviors that the family system uses to avoid dealing with deeper issues. This two-pronged approach, building new while dismantling old, creates irresistible change. The curse loses its energetic food source while new, healthier patterns provide the family with better options. Eventually, the old structure becomes irrelevant, not because it was destroyed through force, but because it was systematically replaced with something better. This is why Capricorn curse breakers often appear to be the responsible ones in dysfunctional families. They're not just being dutiful or people-pleasing, they're performing precise spiritual engineering. Every boundary they set is strategically placed to interrupt a toxic pattern. Every new habit they introduce is designed to strengthen the family's capacity for health. Every old tradition they refuse to continue is carefully selected to weaken the curse's infrastructure. Their work is less dramatic than other curse-breaking signs, but often more permanent. Because they change systems from within, their transformations tend to be lasting. They create new structural realities that make it increasingly difficult for old patterns to reassert themselves. But this approach requires extraordinary spiritual maturity. Capricorn curse breakers must resist the family system's attempts to pull them back into the old patterns. They must maintain their vision of what's possible, even when surrounded by dysfunction. They must continue building new structures even when others criticize or sabotage their efforts. And they must do all of this without becoming rigid, controlling, or self-righteous, which is always a temptation for this earth sign. Each of these three operates through different cosmic mechanisms, but they all share one profound secret about curse breaking that changes everything. Now we arrive at the heart of the mystery, the secret that unites all three curse-breaking signs despite their vastly different approaches, the principle that transforms casual spiritual seekers into cosmic warriors capable of breaking patterns that have bound families for generations. Voluntary sacrifice, not the sacrifice of martyrdom or victimhood, not the sacrifice that comes from low self-worth or the need to prove one's goodness, but the conscious, willing sacrifice of the spiritually mature soul who recognizes that some gifts can only be activated through taking on collective responsibility. Cayce's readings revealed something profound about curse breakers that most people never understand. They don't simply wave away negative patterns from a safe distance. They don't perform quick fixes or magical interventions that leave them untouched. Instead, they voluntarily take on spiritual responsibility for transmuting collective darkness. They make themselves available to process toxic patterns through their own being. They sacrifice their personal comfort to serve collective healing. Each sign sacrifices something different. Scorpios sacrifice emotional safety. They choose to feel what others cannot bear to feel. They dive into the toxic patterns that others flee from. They absorb family trauma into their own emotional system and transform it through the alchemy of their willpower. Their intensity isn't random suffering. It's conscious choice to bear collective pain for the purpose of transmutation. Their emotional volatility isn't instability. It's the natural result of processing generational darkness through their own spiritual furnace. When you understand this, everything changes about how you see the Scorpios in your life. Their struggles become sacred initiations. Their darkness becomes cosmic service. Pisces sacrifice energetic boundaries. They choose to feel everyone's pain as their own. They dissolve the protective barriers that most people maintain between self and others. They become vessels for collective healing by allowing universal love to flow through them without restriction. Their seeming vulnerability isn't weakness, it's conscious permeability to serve as conduits for compassion. Their tendency toward emotional overwhelm isn't poor boundaries, it's the natural result of choosing to feel everything for the purpose of healing everything. When you recognize this, your perception of Pisces transforms completely. Their sensitivity becomes spiritual strength. Their empathy becomes cosmic medicine. Capricorns sacrifice personal desires. They choose long-term collective benefit over short-term personal gratification. They commit to the slow, methodical work of rebuilding family systems, even when it requires decades of patient effort. They postpone their own dreams to create structural foundations that will benefit generations. Their apparent seriousness isn't joylessness, it's conscious dedication to collective transformation. Their tendency toward workaholism isn't compulsion, it's the natural result of carrying responsibility for systemic change. When you see this clearly, Capricorns reveal their true nature. Their discipline becomes spiritual devotion. Their persistence becomes cosmic determination. This sacrifice isn't punishment or suffering for its own sake. It's the voluntary choice of souls who recognized before incarnation that some patterns could only be broken from within. Some curses could only be dissolved by someone willing to absorb them. Some family systems could only be healed by someone willing to take personal responsibility for collective transformation. These souls didn't stumble accidentally into curse-breaking roles. They chose them. They volunteered for the cosmic assignment of transmuting humanity's deepest shadows. And this sacrifice awakens abilities that go far beyond breaking curses, but it also attracts challenges that most souls never face. Here's what nobody tells you about carrying curse-breaking gifts. The moment you begin successfully breaking patterns, you become a target for the very forces that fed off those patterns. This isn't paranoid thinking or spiritual drama, it's cosmic law. Every curse that gets broken represents lost food source for the negative energies that sustained themselves through human suffering. Every family system that gets healed removes a feeding ground for the destructive forces that profit from dysfunction. Every generational pattern that gets dissolved threatens the entire network of negative energy that depends on keeping humanity trapped in cycles of suffering. And these forces don't surrender their food sources without a fight. Curse breakers attract intense spiritual opposition because their very existence threatens patterns that have fed off human pain for generations, sometimes centuries. This opposition manifests differently for each sign, usually by amplifying their natural vulnerabilities. Scorpios face the temptation to become consumed by the very darkness they're meant to transform. Because they work so intimately with toxic patterns, they risk losing themselves in the shadow material they're processing. The family trauma they absorb for transmutation can begin to feel like their own trauma. The generational anger they're dissolving can activate their own rage. The collective depression they're healing can trigger their own despair. Without proper spiritual support, Scorpio curse breakers can become addicted to intensity, drama, and emotional extremes. They might begin to believe that suffering is their natural state, that darkness is their destiny, that transformation requires permanent residence in the shadows. But this is precisely the trap designed to neutralize their gift. If they become permanently identified with darkness, they lose their ability to transform it. If they believe suffering is their spiritual assignment, they forget their true purpose, liberation. Pisces face the opposite but equally dangerous temptation of losing themselves in others' pain. Their natural empathy becomes a spiritual liability when they fail to maintain proper energetic boundaries. They might become perpetual rescuers trying to heal everyone around them while neglecting their own well-being. They might develop what appears to be codependent behavior, but is actually their cosmic gift expressing itself without proper spiritual protection. They might become so identified with others' emotions that they lose connection to their own authentic feelings. The trap for Pisces is believing they must suffer to serve, that their spiritual assignment requires them to become martyrs, that true compassion means sacrificing their own needs for everyone else's healing. But this martyrdom complex actually prevents effective curse breaking. If they become depleted and overwhelmed, they lose access to the oceanic love that is their true gift. Capricorns face the temptation to become so focused on dismantling problems that they forget to create joy. Their systematic approach to curse breaking can become rigid and controlling if they lose sight of the ultimate goal, liberation into love and celebration. They might become so dedicated to fixing family dysfunction that they never learn to play, so committed to building new structures that they forget to enjoy the fruits of their labor, so focused on responsibility that they lose touch with spontaneity and delight. The trap for Capricorns is believing that spiritual work must always be serious, difficult, and sacrificial, that joy is frivolous and celebration is irresponsible, that they must carry the weight of family healing entirely on their own shoulders. But this grim determination actually limits their effectiveness. Without joy, their new structures become as oppressive as the old patterns they replaced. Without play, their spiritual discipline becomes another form of imprisonment. Recognizing these shadow patterns is the first step to avoiding them. Understanding that spiritual opposition is natural, expected, and ultimately manageable. The forces that resist curse breaking are powerful, but they're not more powerful than the cosmic love that chose to incarnate these gifts in the first place. Yet for those who master their gifts, the rewards extend far beyond personal liberation. When a curse breaker successfully dissolves a generational pattern, something magnificent happens. The liberation doesn't stop with the individual who did the work. It doesn't even stop with their immediate family. The freedom ripples backward and forward through time, healing entire bloodlines across multiple generations. This is the cosmic mathematics of curse breaking. One successful transmutation can free 7 generations of ancestors and 7 generations of descendants. One pattern dissolved can liberate hundreds of souls from cycles of repeated suffering. One curse broken can transform entire family systems from foundations of pain into fountains of blessing. Imagine your family tree as a vast network of consciousness, connected through invisible energetic threads. When toxic patterns develop, they create blockages in this network, like blood clots in spiritual arteries. These blockages prevent the natural flow of love, abundance, health, and joy through the family system. Generations of family members find themselves mysteriously struggling with the same issues, despite their conscious efforts to create different outcomes. But when a curse breaker successfully dissolves one of these energetic blockages, the healing flows both directions through time. Ancestors who died carrying unhealed trauma suddenly find release in the spiritual realms. Descendants not yet born will incarnate into a family system free from patterns that would have otherwise shaped their entire lives. The curse breaker becomes a cosmic acupuncturist, releasing pressure points that free vast networks of consciousness. Consider what happens when a Scorpio successfully transforms a family's addiction pattern. Not only do they break the cycle for themselves and their immediate family, they heal the original trauma that created the addiction tendency in the first place, often several generations back. They release ancestors who died trapped in cycles of substance abuse, shame, and self-destruction. They clear the energetic pathway for future generations to be born free from addiction predisposition. One person's alchemical transformation liberates an entire lineage, When a Pisces dissolves a generational pattern of emotional abandonment through oceanic compassion, the ripples are equally profound. The original wound, perhaps a great-great-grandmother's heartbreak that crystallized into a family pattern of relationship sabotage, finally receives the healing it needed. Every family member who struggled with fear of intimacy, inability to trust, or pattern of creating distance in relationships suddenly finds these tendencies beginning to dissolve. Future generations will incarnate into a family system that models healthy intimacy rather than protective isolation. One person's compassionate dissolving heals centuries of relational wounds. When a Capricorn systematically rebuilds a family's relationship with abundance, dismantling generational poverty consciousness, and creating new structures of prosperity, the transformation reaches across time. Ancestors who died believing they were unworthy of financial success find release from these limiting beliefs in the spiritual dimensions. Family members who struggled with self-sabotage around money begin experiencing new possibilities. Children yet to be born will inherit a family system that supports rather than sabotages financial well-being. One person's structural rebuilding transforms entire lineages from scarcity to abundance. This is why curse-breaking work is simultaneously the most challenging and most rewarding spiritual path. The personal cost is high. These souls must sacrifice comfort, safety, and sometimes health to perform their cosmic assignments. But the collective benefit is immeasurable. Hundreds of souls across multiple generations experience liberation because one person was willing to take on the darkness and transform it. The curse-breaker becomes a time traveler, healing past and future through present-moment alchemical work. They become a cosmic surgeon, performing operations that free entire networks of consciousness from patterns of suffering. They become agents of evolutionary change, literally upgrading the spiritual DNA of entire family systems. But what if you're not one of these three signs? Cayce had profound insights about supporting the curse breakers in your life. Not everyone incarnates as a curse breaker, but everyone can participate in the cosmic conspiracy of liberation by learning to support the curse breakers in their lives. If you recognize someone carrying these gifts, whether it's a family member, friend, or partner, understanding their cosmic assignment transforms how you relate to them. Suddenly their intensity makes sense. Their struggles reveal their true nature as spiritual warriors. Their challenging periods become recognizable as times when they're processing collective darkness for transmutation, and your support becomes part of their cosmic mission. Supporting a Scorpio curse-breaker requires understanding that their emotional intensity isn't random drama, it's spiritual work. When they're going through dark periods, they're not just dealing with personal issues. They're processing generational trauma that most people couldn't handle without being destroyed. The greatest gift you can offer a Scorpio is safe space to feel everything without judgment. They need permission to be intense without having to justify or minimize their experience. They need to know that their darkness doesn't frighten you, because you understand it's not personal darkness, it's collective shadow they're transforming on behalf of everyone. Avoid trying to cheer them up or fix their mood when they're in processing mode. Instead, offer presence without agenda. Let them know their emotional courage inspires rather than exhausts you. Help them remember that their ability to dive into darkness is a cosmic gift, not a personal flaw. Supporting a Pisces curse breaker means helping them maintain energetic boundaries while honoring their empathic gifts. Their tendency to feel everyone's emotions isn't oversensitivity, it's cosmic assignment. But they need protection to prevent their gift from becoming a liability. You can help by learning to handle your own emotional processing rather than unconsciously dumping it on the Pisces in your life. When you're struggling, offer them the option to support you, rather than assuming they should automatically absorb your pain. Help them distinguish between their authentic feelings and emotions they're picking up from others. Encourage them to create regular practices of energetic cleansing and protection. Most importantly, remind them that true compassion includes self-compassion. Their spiritual assignment doesn't require them to sacrifice their own well-being for others' healing. Supporting a Capricorn curse breaker means honoring their long-term vision, even when you can't see immediate results. Their systematic approach to transformation requires patience that most people don't naturally possess. While others want quick fixes and dramatic changes, Capricorns are laying foundations for transformation that might not be fully visible for years. Your greatest gift to a Capricorn curse breaker is faith in their process, appreciation for the small, consistent changes they're making, recognition that their disciplined approach, while less exciting than other methods, often creates the most lasting transformation. Help them celebrate incremental victories rather than waiting for complete success. Encourage them to include joy and play in their systematic approach to healing. Remind them that the new structures they're building should feel better than the old patterns they're replacing. For all curse-breaking signs, the most powerful support you can offer is conscious participation in your own healing work. Every pattern you resolve in yourself makes their work easier. Every generational wound you heal reduces the collective darkness they're processing. Every curse you break in your own lineage lightens the load for everyone doing this cosmic work. You become part of the liberation team, not as a curse breaker yourself, but as a conscious contributor to collective healing. And if you are one of these three signs, there are specific practices that can amplify your natural gifts exponentially. If you're a Scorpio who recognizes yourself in this cosmic role, your spiritual practices should support rather than suppress your natural intensity. Your gift of emotional fearlessness becomes more powerful when it's consciously directed rather than randomly activated. Your ability to transform darkness requires proper spiritual protection and regular energetic maintenance. Think of yourself as someone who works with radioactive materials. You have natural immunity that others lack, but you still need proper protocols to prevent contamination. Daily energetic cleansing becomes essential rather than optional, not because you're dirty or toxic, but because you're constantly processing dense energies that need to be consciously released rather than unconsciously accumulated. Water practices serve Scorpios powerfully: salt baths, ocean swimming, or simply sitting by running water while consciously releasing the day's energetic absorption. Visualize the toxic patterns you've absorbed for transmutation, washing out of your system and returning to the earth for composting into neutral energy. Crystal allies that support transmutation work: obsidian for protection, moldavite for acceleration, black tourmaline for grounding, can amplify your natural abilities while providing energetic support. But the most crucial practice for Scorpio curse breakers is emotional alchemy training. Learning to consciously convert anger into compassion, fear into wisdom, rage into determination, despair into deeper empathy. This isn't about suppressing negative emotions. It's about completing their transmutation rather than getting stuck in their raw form. When you feel family anger arising, instead of being consumed by it, breathe it down into your spiritual furnace. Feel it burning away the dross of resentment and emerging as clarified compassion for everyone involved. When generational fear activates in your system, instead of fighting or feeding it, allow it to reveal the wisdom it's trying to protect. Transform survival terror into conscious discernment about genuine versus imagined threats. Regular solitude becomes crucial for Scorpio curse breakers. You need time away from external energetic input to process what you've absorbed and ensure complete transmutation before taking on more. Create sacred space where you can feel everything fully without having to explain or justify your experience to others. Remember that your intense emotional experiences are sacred initiations. Each time you successfully transform darkness into light, you increase your capacity to handle even denser patterns. Your struggles aren't punishments, they're promotions to higher levels of spiritual responsibility. While Scorpios work through intensity, Pisces curse breakers need completely different support. For Pisces curse breakers, the key practices focus on maintaining compassionate connection while preserving energetic sovereignty. Your oceanic empathy is your greatest gift and your greatest vulnerability. The practices that serve you best teach discernment without hardening your heart, boundaries without barriers, protection without separation. Begin each day with a conscious practice of filling your own energetic cup before engaging with others' needs. Visualize yourself surrounded by an ocean of divine love, not as separation from others, but as conscious connection to the infinite source that makes all healing possible. From this ocean of universal love, you can offer genuine compassion without depleting your personal reserves. Water meditation becomes essential for Pisces, not just visualization, but actual physical connection with water elements. Baths infused with intention, time spent near natural bodies of water, conscious drinking of blessed water as a form of internal cleansing. These practices help you maintain fluidity without losing form. The most crucial skill for Pisces curse breakers is learning to distinguish between your authentic emotions and feelings you're absorbing from others. Several times throughout the day, pause and ask, "Is this mine?" If the emotion feels foreign, too intense for your actual circumstances, or disconnected from your personal experience, it's likely not yours. Practice consciously releasing absorbed emotions back to their source with blessing rather than carrying them as personal burdens. Develop mantras that support your gift while protecting your well-being. I can feel deeply while remaining sovereign. My compassion serves everyone when I include myself. I heal others by maintaining my own spiritual health. For Capricorn curse breakers, the essential practices support long-term systematic transformation while preventing rigidity and joylessness. Your gift of structural rebuilding requires patience, persistence, and perspective that most people can't maintain.